All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. There's still a number of people that we're waiting on, but we're going to go ahead and start anyway. Before we begin the presentation, just a couple things to note. You can participate in the webinar either by dialing in by telephone or using your computer microphone and speakers. You can change that selection by in the audio section of the GoToWebinar software. You should have a little item in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. If it's not expanded, there's an arrow that you can click on to expand it, and you can change whether or not you want to dial in by telephone or use a computer microphone and speakers. During the presentation, since we have so many people in here today, I will keep everyone muted. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in to the chat or questions panel, and Becca will answer any questions that you might have while I'm presenting. At the end, we will have a question and answer session. So if you would like to speak to the group, there's a button that says raise hand. If you click that button, I'll know to unmute you so you can ask your question to the group. So that's how we'll handle the question and answer session as well. So today's webinar is about using ZoomText on the web. So we're going to go through a number of tips and tricks for different ways that you can use ZoomText on the internet, specifically on a couple different web pages. Gmail, Facebook, and Twitter, although Twitter is unfortunately down today. I don't know if it'll be back up by the time we get to it, but I can still go over the concepts of what we're going to cover, what we would have covered anyway. So here's an outline of what we're going to cover. First thing I'm going to go over with you is some basic hotkeys for your web browser. These are not ZoomText hotkeys, but hotkeys for your web browser to do things like get to your address bar, open a new tab, open your downloads list. Just some helpful tips on how you can use hotkeys to get to different areas of the web browser. We'll also go through using AppReader on the web, a couple different things and some other tips that you might not know about in using AppReader. I will also demonstrate our Web Finder tool. We also demonstrate this in the What's New in ZoomText 10 webinar. So basically, if you've seen that, we're going to go through similar examples of that. But I'll also be using Web Finder in our Facebook demonstration, which is the last part of the presentation, which will be using tips for specific web pages. So we use Web Finder to navigate by heading to get to status updates and things like that. I'll also show you Gmail, some new features that we have in there, such as our chat support. So if someone types a message to me, it'll read it back to me and things like that. And also, we've improved our Gmail support as well. So last thing we'll cover is Twitter and how to read your timeline in Twitter. There's no real easy way to do it. There's no really easy way to get to the timeline in Twitter. So this will actually be a good example of using the reading zones feature in ZoomText. So those are some of the things that we're going to cover. And we're going to go ahead and jump right into the live demonstration. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over here. And I've already got ZoomText running. Everything's already set up. I've got my web pages kind of prepped here. So I wasn't going to go through and show you guys me opening up all these pages and all these tabs. So they're already open. First thing we're going to do is we're going to start on the AI Squared homepage. So I've got Internet Explorer 9 running along with ZoomText 10. And the first thing I'm going to show you is a very simple hotkey, which is if you use the tab key on any web browser, it'll navigate through all of the items on the web page. So if I just hit tab, it's going to start going through links or any other items. Now right now, the screen's moving, but it's impossible to tell what I'm actually on, okay? So the highlight that the operating system is using is really hard to tell where it is. This is one good example of why you want the focus enhancement in ZoomText turned on. So if I bring up the ZoomText toolbar, click on the focus icon, I'm going to choose the red rectangle scheme. All right, so now if I start tabbing, you see these items being highlighted as I tab. Okay, so before I wouldn't really see anything. There is what's called a focus rectangle that's being drawn on the screen by the web browser, but it's very, very hard to see. Okay, so one way you can navigate through a web page, which is kind of clunky, is to use the tab key to just jump between links of information. All right, just by hitting the Tab key, I can start going through these items. And again, having that focus enhancement turned on is very helpful. So if you're on an item, like I'm on the ZoomText keyboard link right now, I can activate that link by hitting the Enter key. So if I press Enter on my keyboard, it loads up that page. All right, so one way to navigate and activate links is using the Tab key and then hit Enter to go to that page. If I want to go back, hitting the backspace key is just the same as clicking on the back button in the upper left-hand corner of your browser. So backspace will bring me back to the previous page. Now let's say I'm on a link, and I'm going to have to start tabbing because it basically wraps to the top once you open the page. But let's say I'm on a link, our Learning tab, and I want to open this page in a new tab in our browser. I want to still keep this page open. If you hit Control-Enter, that's going to open that link in a new tab, or at least it should. Let me try that again. Well, maybe IE doesn't want to cooperate with us. Oh, it did open it. It just didn't bring my focus to the new tab. So I hit Control-Enter. It opens a new tab, activating that link. So the original page is still open, but it opened the link I was on in a new tab. Okay? So that's what Control-Enter will do. Basically, you can retain that original page and go to the subsequent link by hitting Control-Enter. So I'm just going to go ahead and close those tabs out now. We're just going to go back to the AI Squared homepage. Now, one thing that a lot of people might not know is the toolbars in IE, the file menu, file edit view, tools, help, etc., are hidden by default. So a lot of times our tech support department will ask, what version of Internet Explorer are you running? Okay, to make sure that you're running a supported version. And those file menus, again, are hidden, and you can bring them up simply by hitting the Alt key. So if I press Alt, you see that the file menus show up here. All right, so again, if you press Alt, if I press it now, it'll hide them. Okay, so they are hidden by default. So if you want to see what version of IE you're running, press the Alt key, then you'll see the Help menu, and usually in here it'll say what's new in whatever version you're running, or you can click About Internet Explorer to get the very specific version number. Okay, so that's another quick tip, is that those file menus are hidden and the Alt key will activate them. One hotkey I use a lot is Alt-D, as in David. That will get you up to the address bar so you can type in a website URL. So for example, if I'm down here, I'm reading the page, and if you're magnified, you're not going to be able to see the address bar, but just pressing Alt-D will bring your focus up to the address bar. It highlights the current URL that you're on, and I can start typing in a new website, hit Enter, and go to it. So a very handy hotkey is that Alt-D hotkey to bring the address bar into focus. Okay. Another thing, this is a simple thing that most people probably already know, but you can scroll the web page using your arrow keys up and down. Okay, that'll go line by line. You can also use the page up and page down keys to go down a full page or up a full page of information at any time. All right, so you can use the arrow keys or the page up, page down keys to scroll the page as well. If you want to jump to the top or the bottom of a page, Control-End will bring you to the very end of the page. Okay, so now you can see, if I look here, we're at the bottom of our website where all of our contact information is. Conversely, Control-Home will bring you to the beginning. So Control-End to bring you to the end, Control-Home to bring you to the top. Okay. A little bit earlier, you saw me using Control-Enter to open a link in a new tab. You can open a new tab at any time by pressing Control-T on your keyboard. So that opens up a new tab, and it puts my focus in the address bar so I can start typing in a new website URL. I use tabs frequently because a lot of times I have multiple web pages open. We might have our Facebook page open, we might have Gmail open, our website, and it's just easy to open all those at one time so I can cycle between tabs of information. So I'll just go ahead and put Google News in here. So right now I've got two tabs, Google News and the AI Squared homepage. So again, Control-T is going to open a new tab for me. If I want to cycle between those tabs, holding down the Control key and pressing the Tab key will switch between the tabs I have open. If I have a third tab, so again I'll do Control-T, and let's say this one is CNN.com. So right now I've got 3 web pages open: AI Squared, Google News, and CNN. Pressing Control-Tab is basically going to cycle through in order all of these tabs that I have open. So Control-Tab to AI Squared, press it again, go to Google News, press it again, we go to CNN. So it'll cycle through all of those as you continue to hit the hotkey. You can also go in the reverse direction by pressing Control-Shift-Tab. That'll go in the opposite direction. All right, so this can be handy if you've got a lot of information open at one time. Now let's say you want to close this tab. You could do it by clicking on the X icon here, but there's an easier way to do it with hotkeys, which is just pressing Control-W. Control-W will close the current tab that you're on. So right now, the CNN tab is gone, just AI Squared and Google News. I can press it again, closes the Google News tab. Okay? So just some handy hotkeys to open different tabs, go to different web pages, close and open them that you might not be aware of. Now, one really handy hotkey if you've talked to support or ever had trouble downloading a trial version of our product, a lot of these browsers kind of hide your downloads window, so it can be hard to find them. And then if you've got your file menus hidden, you really don't know where to find your downloads. So there is a hotkey to open the downloads dialog, which is Control-J. Let me try that again. I don't know what's going on with IE here because the file menu is kind of stuck open. Let's try this again. I'll reopen it. Okay, so Control-J will open up your downloads window, so you can see any downloads that you've completed. In this case, it looks like I didn't finish this download, so I could click Resume or Cancel. But if you have finished the download of something, let's go ahead and actually download something small. I'm going to go find some of our documentation here just to get something in the download. So I'll go ahead and click Save. And so you get this message about the download, okay, you know, that it's downloading, but let's say I closed this out by mistake or I just didn't see that. So now I'm thinking, all right, I clicked to download this, you know, User's Guide Addendum for ZoomText 10.1 for Windows 8. Where the heck did it go? Pressing Control-J will bring up the downloads window, and very simply, you can click the Open button. It may have a different label in different browsers. It might say Run. So now I can just click that Open button, and it will open the file that I downloaded. Okay, very easy for me to get to that information. So now you don't have to struggle to find your Downloads folder, open up Windows Explorer, look for the file, and wonder where the heck it saved it to. Just open up that Downloads list, and you should be able to click the Open button there. Okay, very handy hotkey to remember.
Can I just interrupt you for a moment?
Yeah, sure.
We had somebody ask if all of these hotkeys work in Firefox as well.
They do, yep. All of these hotkeys, I did test it in Firefox. They are consistent across the 2 browsers. So it will work in Firefox. Excellent question. And just to reiterate that these are hotkeys for the web browsers, i.e. in Firefox. They're not ZoomText hotkeys. They're built into the browser, or really kind of almost like Windows hotkeys, I guess you would categorize them as. So ZoomText doesn't have anything to do with these hotkeys, just to reiterate that. But they will work across browsers. Now, next thing I'm going to show you is using AppReader on the web. If you've joined us for any of our ZoomText 10 webinars, you've seen one of the new features, which is called Read from Pointer. This is going to be the easiest way to start AppReader on the Internet. And to do that, you hold down the Alt and Shift keys, and then left-click on wherever you want to start reading. So whatever I'm looking at on the page, I can press Alt-Shift, hold those down, and then left-click my mouse.
ZoomText 10 is jam-packed with exciting features and add-ons.
And I can have AppReader start from anywhere wherever the mouse pointer position is. This is different than using the Alt-Shift-A hotkey. If I press Alt-Shift-A,
AppReader tool.
it's going to jump me to the top. Well, it should jump me to the top of the page, which might not be necessarily where I want to start reading. Now, another thing you might not be aware of, remember at the beginning of our webinar, I was showing you how you could use the tab key and you're jumping through links, and I didn't have the focus enhancement turned on, so I couldn't tell what was being highlighted, and it was kind of clunky behavior to do that. Well, another thing is AppReader can also be used to tab through links. As long as AppReader is paused, I can hit the tab key,
ZoomText Mac,
to go through all of the links.
PC, Mac,
Oops, I don't know what happened there. Let's try that again.
ZoomText PC, Mac.
Oh, looks like it doesn't like scrolling the page here.
Windows, download a free ImageReader. ZoomText University, ZoomText Mac.
Okay, so you can see that AppReader will also highlight and read the links as well. And if you hit, I believe it's Control-Enter. So if I just press the Enter key right now, I'm in AppReader. Enter key will resume reading. But if I wanted to activate that link, Control-Enter in AppReader will activate the link and open the new page. Okay? So you can also use AppReader to tab through links as well. And again, the nice thing about that is you're getting the highlighting automatically because AppReader is running, and it will also read the information to you also. Okay? So those are some quick tips on navigating through the website, a couple different hotkeys for opening new tabs and things like that. Next thing we're going to jump into, and I'm going to first bring up our blog page here, and then I'm going to go ahead and bring up ZoomText. Next thing we're going to talk about is our Web Finder tool. Some of you may have seen us demonstrate this in the past, but basically what Web Finder allows you to do is search, navigate, and filter through content on a web page. So I'm going to give you 3 different examples of how you can use this tool. One, I'm just going to use it like a simple find command just to search for any text that's visible on the page. I'll search for a text term and then find any result of it on the page. We'll then refine our search by changing. In Web Finder, you can search by different web page elements, and I'll explain that a little bit later. But after that, we'll show you how you can use that web page, those web page elements, to just jump through content quickly on Google News. And then the last one is we'll demonstrate to you what's called the list view in Web Finder for very complex pages that have a lot of content, and we'll do that on CNN. So 3 examples here, and these examples, can be used in a number of different areas as well. It can be applied to a number of different web pages. So these are really concepts that we want to show you that you could use in different web pages. So we'll go ahead and start. And again, one thing to mention, Web Finder is only going to be enabled if you're in a supported web browser like Internet Explorer or Firefox. So if I'm on the desktop, this button will be grayed out. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the Web Finder button. I'm on our blog page right now. And once I click on Web Finder, it'll open up a new dialog here, or window rather, and it's prompting me to type in a search term. All right, so let's say I want to search for ZoomText 10.1. All right, I'm interested in learning about our new release for Windows 8. So I've typed that in. Right now, to the right of it, I have this item set that says Page Items. And the default is it will search for all text results of ZoomText 10.1. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that for right now. I'll hit the Enter key, or I can also click on the Next button to go to the first result. These navigation buttons here are used to navigate through your search results. So I'll go ahead and just click, press Enter.
ZoomText 10.1 for Windows 8 is released. Permanent link to ZoomText 10.1 for Windows 8 is released.
Okay.
Heading 2 contains link.
So it reads the first result, which is a heading that contains a link. If anything contains a link, this Execute button will be enabled. Otherwise, it'll be grayed out. Execute means it'll basically, like clicking on that link, it'll bring you to that page. So that's the first result of the word ZoomText 10.1. It's a heading at the top of the page, and headings are generally the start of an article. All right, let's go ahead and go to the next result.
ZoomText 10.1 for Windows 8 is here.
All right, so then we've got a plain text result of the word ZoomText 10.1. And in this case, when you have a result that's part of text, like a paragraph, it's going to read the line of text where that word appears. So if ZoomText 10.1 wasn't in the beginning of that sentence, it might be in the middle. So the sentence might say, we have a new product, ZoomText 10.1 for Windows 8 is here. All right, so it's going to try and read it to you in context where that result appears. Let's go ahead and click on Next, see if we've got any other results for the word.
ZoomText 10.1 is for Windows 8 only at this time.
Okay, another result.
Check out the following videos, showcasing everything that ZoomText 10.1 can offer.
All right, so you can see that result was part of a longer sentence. It didn't appear in the beginning. So you can see that there's a lot of results for the word ZoomText 10.1. I'll keep going.
Introduction to ZoomText 10.1 for Windows 8.
All right.
Watch the Introduction to ZoomText 10.1 for Windows 8 video. Link.
Okay, so that one's a link. It told us it was a link at the end of it. And it looks like that's the end. I have a message here that says Web Finder has reached the end of the page. Would you like to continue at the beginning of the page? I'm going to go ahead and click on No for right now. So you could see that there are a lot of results for the word ZoomText 10.1 on this website. Now, if I wanted to refine my search, all right, I can do that, and I'll go ahead and open up Web Finder by pressing its hotkey, which is Control-Shift-W. Okay, I'll go ahead and type in ZoomText 10.1 again. Now remember, to the right of the search term, I had this page items, and it was set to all text. This means that any text result of the word ZoomText 10.1 is going to show up in the results as I'm going through the page. Now, if I want to be a little bit more efficient, maybe I only want to find article titles that contain the word ZoomText 10.1. So if I click on the drop-down here where it says All Text, you're going to see that there's a number of different items listed here. Sections, headings, links, images, tables, lists, forms, and controls. These are all different web page elements. It's not necessarily important to understand every single one of them, but one of the more important ones is headings. Headings are generally going to be where you'll find article titles. The start of an article usually is defined by a heading of some sort. Okay, so if I'm only interested in finding ZoomText 10.1 article titles, because maybe I want to start reading from the beginning of that article, then I can change my page items type to headings instead of all text. So I'll go ahead and click on Next.
ZoomText 10.1 for Windows 8 is released. Permanent link to ZoomText 10.1 for Windows 8 is released. Heading 2.
Okay, the first result is still the same. Now, I'm not 100% sure if there is another heading in here that has ZoomText 10.1 associated with it. But remember before, when I had it set to all text, the next search result was right here. ZoomText 10.1 for Windows 8 is here, that sentence. So now that we've set this to headings, it's going to skip over that because that's a plain text result. That's not a heading. And it looks like that's the only heading on the page that has ZoomText 10.1 in it. Why don't I go ahead and do this? I'm going to quickly change the search type, or the search text to ZoomText. And if we did all text, I'm going to do this a little bit quickly just so you can see. If I do all text results, you're going to see that there are a lot of instances of the word ZoomText on this page.
Picture of ZoomText running on a tablet. ZoomText 10.1 for ZoomText is the first. ZoomText 10.1 is for Windows.
Okay, so you see there's a lot of instances of the word ZoomText. Oh my God, I don't want to read all this information. I just want to find the article titles regarding ZoomText. So again, type in my search term, change the page items type to headings.
ZoomText 10.1 for Windows 8 is released.
Still the same first result because that's the first article on the page that has the word ZoomText. If I click Next.
Free webinar, using ZoomText on the web. Permanent link to free webinar, using ZoomText on the web. Heading 2.
So there's our next search result. Remember before I'm clicking Next, 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 it's reading all this text about ZoomText 10.1. So since I've changed my page items type, I'm able to search more effectively. I'm just looking for headings or really the article titles regarding ZoomText. So from here, let's say I found what I was looking for. Oh, I want to read more about this webinar. I can click the Execute button to open that page. So now we're brought to that page. I still have my search term typed in. I'm still in the headings page items type. If I click the next button, it's going to bring me to the beginning of the article.
Free webinar using ZoomText on the web.
And then from here, I could click the AppReader button to start reading from that result.
Free webinar using ZoomText on the web by Rebecca White on August 6, 2013. Picture of the globe with an Ethernet cord coming out of it, one of the more difficult text.
Okay, so in this example, we did a number of different things. One, we searched for just a plain text result on the page. We refined our search by changing it to the headings item type. Then once we got to the heading or the article that we wanted to read, we executed the link. We went to the beginning of the article and then started AppReader to begin reading on the page. All right, so that's just a sample workflow on how you can use Web Finder. We kind of started at the very basics, just using it to search for anything on the page, and then we changed our page items type to make us a little bit more efficient.
Can you just, we had a question about the next and previous toolbar buttons,
Yep.
what their hotkeys are.
Yep, the hotkeys are Alt-N or Alt-P. I believe you can also use, let's see here, I think
ZoomText. Free.
Yeah, you can also use Control Right and Control Left arrow, but Alt-N and Alt-P also works. You can see that the N and the P are underlined. Any item that's underlined, or any letter, excuse me, that's underlined is called the accelerator key. So if you hold down the Alt key and then press the letter that's underlined, it will activate that item. That's true for any dialog in ZoomText and most applications. So there's, in this case, there's two sets of hotkeys, Alt-P for previous, Alt-N for next, or you can use Control Left or Right arrow. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All right. So we showed you how to use Web Finder to search for text results, and that was in an instance I knew what I was looking for. All right, I was on our blog, and I'm looking for information regarding ZoomText or ZoomText 10.1. Now, let's say we're on a web page like Google News, and I don't know necessarily what I'm looking for. I'm on the sports page, and we generally show sports because there's a lot of stuff in the top story that people probably don't want to hear about, and this is generally the most safest, non-controversial content, so we usually stick with sports. So anyway, in this case, I may not know exactly what I'm looking for. So if I start Web Finder, again, I'm using the hotkey, which is Control-Shift-W. Let's remember the concepts from before. We have our page items types listed here. It's still set to headings from previously, but notice that it's not prompting me to enter in any search text. What this means is that I can very easily just go through all of the headings on the page. I don't have to type in any text. If I have it set to all text, it's wanting me to enter in a search term to look for, which is why it's got this orange color in here. It's saying, hey, you need to fill in something. But if we're just going to look for heading results, we're not required to put in a search term. We can go through all of the headings on this page. So in the case of Google News, all of their articles, the titles of the articles are headings. So I can either click this next button or use those hotkeys for previous or next, but there's also hotkeys to navigate by the page items type. In this case, if I want to go through headings, I can use Control-H to go to the next heading, or Control-Shift-H will go back in the opposite direction. So I'm going to use Control-H to start jumping through all of the headings on the page.
Sports, heading 2.
The first one is the sports heading, which is kind of the title of the category. But if I hit Control-H again, it's going to go to the title of the first article.
RG3 ditches signature hairstyle for a new and improved look. Heading 2.
Now, watch what's going to happen here once I hit Control-H again.
Man dies after 65-foot fall at Turner.
Okay, so maybe that's not an uplifting story for us here. But anyway, what I wanted to showcase was the previous result was the title of the article here. You have all these different links for different sources that are reporting similar articles. We skipped over all of that and went to the next subject, basically. So you skipped all this information in between to go to the next heading.
Vickers joins Waltrip's team full-time. Heading 2.
Okay, so I'm just going to jump through a few of these.
The controversial call that spoiled you Darvist perfect game bid. Heading 2. Austin Dillon to fill in for injured Tony Stewart at Michigan.
Okay, so you can see that using heading navigation on a page like Google News is really helpful and really easy to just jump through the content. You don't even need to be looking at the screen because you're hearing the result from ZoomText. And the nice thing is, if we find the heading that we want to read,
New York Mets 54-62 at Los Angeles Dodgers 68-50, 10:10 p.m. ET heading 2.
All right, so let's say, oh, I want to read that article. You can press Control-Enter to activate that link, or you can activate the Execute button. It's going to do the same thing. So I press Control-Enter, and in this case, it looks like on Google News, activating the link opens up. It opens up the rest of, I guess they have these collapsed, this rich story view. I guess this is new. I didn't know that was new. But anyway, let's go
New York Mets 54-62 at Los Angeles Dodgers 68.
May have to execute it. They've changed the layout a little bit of Google News, so it's almost like you have to execute it twice. But again, you can jump through those headings, find the one that you want, and then execute the page to get to your article. Okay? So 2 examples we've gone through so far. One, I knew what I was looking for on our blog. I'm looking for instances of ZoomText. All right? The next one, we didn't know we were looking for, and we used heading navigation to jump through all the article titles on the web page. Now, I told you that the hotkey for headings was Control-H. There's also hotkeys for all the other different element types. Headings is Control-S, Control-L for links, Control-I for images, Control-T for tables, Control-S for lists, since we already used L with links, Control-F for forms, and Control-C for controls. Again, don't worry about all those different definitions and what they do. Really, the most important ones are headings and links. Headings are going to mostly be your article titles. Links are going to be any link that you can execute on the page. Remember, we were tabbing through links earlier, so you could just use Control-L
plus U, search, image, map, play,
to start jumping through any of the links. Now, another thing to mention, regardless of what your page items type is here,
YouTube, News, GMA,
even if it's all text, I can use those Control letter hotkeys to go through the different page items type. So you don't need to worry about changing this if you're using the hotkeys to jump through things like links or headings. Okay, only if you're using the next and previous buttons, or you're typing in or looking for a search term, is this really important. All right. Okay, so last example I'm going to show you in using Web Finder is going to be on a very complex and busy website, which is CNN. If I just arrow through this page, there are a ton of links and information on the website. It's kind of overbearing. So it's like if you're going to look for something on this page, you could be searching for a very long time, next, 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 through all of the information until you find what you really want. So the nice thing in Web Finder, and I'm going to open it again, Control-Shift-W, is we have this list view. If I click on the list button, it's going to populate the list with all of the web page element items that are on the page. Now notice here it says all items. We can change what shows up in the list by choosing any of the different web page elements. All right, so let's see, there are 513 items on the page, whether they're links, images, headings, whatever. There's a bunch of them, okay? And you can filter through the list by starting to type in that search text field. So if I was interested in finding articles, let's say about the NFL, I wanted to find football-related articles, I can start typing in N. Okay, so I typed in the first letter. There's 338 items with the letter N, and you can see that the N is highlighted in the search result, so NFL. We've got two links. They're probably the same. Actually, they're two different links because they're spelled differently. So we really only got one article, NFL bans customized face masks. So easily, I'm able to look through the entire site to find an article that I'm interested in. I didn't have to visually scroll through anything. I just started typing. It shows up in my list view, and I can decide what I want to do with it from here. The execute button is going to execute that link, essentially opening the page. AppReader button will start reading from where that result appears, but then we also have this Go To button, which only shows up in the list view. If I click Go To, it's going to show me where that result appears on screen, which may be helpful to give you a little bit of context. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Go To.
NFL bans customized face masks. Link.
So you can see it highlights where the link is. I'm just going to move the Web Finder toolbar a little bit. So it's under this More Top Stories heading. You can see it's highlighted. Okay, and now I have a little bit of context. Sometimes there's a picture associated with your the article that you're looking at, and you might want to just take a brief look at it before you execute it. And you can go back to the list view at any time by clicking on that list button. So again, in here, you can use the list view to filter through content, whether you're typing in text or if you change your items type to something different, like let's say I just choose links. There's still 364 links on the page. But the nice thing is, remember how I was saying, you could be using that next and previous button all day long until you found what you're looking for. The cool thing is in this list view, I can just start arrowing up and down, and quickly visually read this with my eyes until I find what I want. So this is another way. I think it's a little bit easier when you're looking at a list of items, to kind of visually scan through content rather than clicking a button next, waiting for it to visually scroll into your view, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so this is just another way that you can use Web Finder, and again, it's good for very complex web pages like CNN where there's a ton of different content on the page. All right, so that's our Web Finder tool. A few other things I want to mention before we jump into Facebook. We've done a lot of work in the past few months in ZoomText to improve our webmail support. And specifically, a few areas you're going to notice that is one is in Yahoo Mail. So if you use the Yahoo Mail, Yahoo Webmail, we've improved a number of different areas in terms of our reading support with ZoomText. Specifically, typing echo. So when you type in the compose email field, it's now going to read the words you type. Our program echo, if you're tabbing through controls or clicking on controls, it'll read all those labels to you. And our document reading tools now work correctly in Yahoo Mail. So we've had a real focus on improving a number of areas for our webmail support, and Yahoo Mail is just one of them. We've also done the same with Gmail, and we have improved some support for the AOL desktop email client. So those are some areas that you could see some improvements just in the last few updates of ZoomText. Another area that we're working on right now that a lot of other assistive technologies are struggling to support is the brand new Outlook.com. I think Microsoft has changed Hotmail, or there's so many iterations of Hotmail, Live.com, and Outlook.com. I kind of get confused as to which one is which. But Outlook.com is pretty new. Effectively, it emulates what the Outlook desktop application looks like in an email environment. So we're working to improve our support there as well, and I believe that ZoomText will work with it currently. There's some kind of quirky behavior, but suffice to say that we're a little bit ahead of the game and ahead of others in the industry right now. So that's another thing that you're going to see improvements to in the future. All right, next thing we're going to talk about is something that everybody, or a lot of people, I shouldn't say everyone, wants to know about, and that's how to more effectively use Facebook with ZoomText. Facebook is kind of a disaster at times, especially when they're changing their layout so frequently. But I'm going to give you some tips, specifically using Web Finder, on how you can effectively navigate your news feed with ZoomText and Web Finder. So remember we were doing some navigation before with Web Finder. A really easy way that you can get to your news feed in Facebook is to use heading navigation. You have to jump through a couple other items before you get to the news feed, but it's the best way that you can get to your news feed and start consuming the information. So I'm going to use that Control-H hotkey to start going through headings.
Facebook, heading 1.
So the first heading is that Facebook button in the very top. Another nice thing I should mention, although I don't have any notifications now, if you load Facebook with ZoomText and you have speech turned on, it'll tell you how many notifications you have currently, which I think is a nice feature. So when you load up the page, it'll say 5 notifications. Let me just do it now.
Facebook, Windows Internet Explorer.
Let me see if it'll do it for me now if I refresh the page. Well, of course, now it won't do it for me. But
Facebook, Windows Internet Explorer.
Anyway, before it was telling me 0 notifications. So when you do get to the page, it'll tell you if you have notifications. So first heading result is, I should have spoke. Let's go back there.
Favorites, heading 4.
So that first result was that Facebook button. Then the next one is favorites. So there's a few headings I'm going to have to get through before I get to my news feed. So favorites,
pages,
groups,
apps,
apps is the last
more,
one. Then,
heading 4.
Then if I hit Control-H again,
interests,
oh, one more, sorry.
Suggested groups,
Another one.
heading 6, sponsor, news feed, heading 2.
Finally, we're in our news feed. So if I hit Control-H again,
Bookshare, heading 5.
okay, that's the person that posted it. If I hit Control-H again,
Back to school? Will students with print disabilities have the accessible books they need? Sign up for Bookshare? 3 easy steps. Speed chat,
okay, see,
heading 5.
so that one was kind of clunky because they had all these hashtags with different items, so the speech engine is pausing once it gets to those pound signs. But what I wanted to show you is using Control-H, you're going to go down to the person that posted it, and then their actual status update. I'm going to try and find a different one here because there's a lot of these that are like check-ins and things like that. So I'm going to jump down until I find a good one that's like a normal status update.
Mary Ellen said Chelsea one-page shared Proverbs. Bookshare shared a link.
Lots of Bookshare.
Let's
see.
Like Jeff, Mary, here, Michael, Big Mike Ward, heading 5.
Okay, so this gentleman posted a status update.
Jesus brings me peace and joy,
Okay.
heading 5.
And that was his status update. So you can easily use the heading navigation to jump through the person that's posting and then their update. Now, if I can find one that has, let me just see if I can find one that has comments.
Assistant Cassie Locke, Logan Campbell, retinitis
Okay, here we
pigmentosa
go.
support group, BRP family group, heading 5.
So this person posted to the RP family group, and I'm going to hit Control-H to go to the next heading, which is their status update.
Any teachers with RP? Heading 5.
It says, any teachers with RP, she asked the question. Now, if I hit Control-H right now, it's going to go down to the next post on my news feed. It's not going to go down to her comments. So to get to the comments, I have to actually use section navigation. That hotkey is Control-S. So the workflow here is I get to the person, Control-H, Control-H to their status update, and if there's comments, Control-S will get me down into the comments.
Nora Rahman, hands up. P. 11 minutes ago, bullet like. Logan Campbell, how does it impact your teaching? 10 minutes ago, Vidoc mobile, bullet like.
Now, what happened?
Facebook, Windows, Internet.
It did read it. What happened was it actually scrolled it out of view, so it read this person's comment, which was hands up, and then the next person says, how does it impact your teaching? So let's try and do that again. I just want to see
Web.
so I'm going to Control-H until I get back there quickly.
Pick, like, Jeff, Mary, here, Michael, Big Mike, assistive technology, Cassie Locke, any teachers with RP? Heading 5.
I'm going to,
Facebook, Windows, Web Finder.
okay. So now it's in view. It's not going to scroll the page. So I'm on her status update, and Control-S is going to bring me down to those comments.
Nora Rahman, hands up. P. 12 minutes ago, bullet blank. Logan Campbell, how does it impact your teaching? 11 minutes ago via mobile bullet blank.
Okay.
Write a comment.
So it read all the information that was in the comments. Now, if you're wondering why it said hands up P, it's because that person posted a comment that was a smiley face with its tongue sticking out, which is colon and then the letter P. So that's why NeoSpeech read that. It's not going to be able to read, you know, smiley face or whatever. It doesn't know how to handle that. So that's why it said that, in case you're wondering. So again, just to reiterate, a couple tips that can be helpful to get to that news feed is
Facebook,
using your heading navigation until you get to your news feed, and then you can jump through the people that are on that feed, Control-H, Control-H, go through their status updates. Then if you find one that has comments that you want to read the comments in, press Control-S. Now, you have to do it in that order because the section navigation, I think it's how Facebook is comprised. If I were to just do
edit setting,
section navigation on its own,
add to favorites, rearrange, add to 0, updates, sort, Chris, Lisa, write a comment, share, options, Michelle, to people like this. It's only going to go to where those comments are. All right, so I'm not going to get context as to who posted it and what they said. The actual sections that are defined here are the comment areas. So I'm not able to tell that, okay, Jeffrey Lucas added a new photo, and those were the comments associated with it. So the problem with just using section navigation on its own is you're losing context because the sections are not associated with anything else. So the best way to do it is in the order that we just demonstrated it in. Navigate by heading. Once you find something that has comments that you want to listen to, use Control-S once you're on that item. You know what you're on. You use section navigation on its own. It's just going to jump through any status update that has comments, which isn't really helpful because you don't know what you're on. So there's a little bit of a learning curve here. I mean, no web page is going to be perfect in using the navigation that you're able to do with Web Finder, just because everything is designed differently. But this is a nice workflow if you're using Facebook. Navigate by heading through your news feed, hear the status updates, Control-S if you want to hear the comments for any one of those status updates. It's a nice and easy way to just be able to jump through content. Rather than use AppReader and listen to every little single piece of that, I think it's a little bit easier to use Web Finder to do that. You are free to use AppReader. I mean, again, just using the Alt-Shift-Left-Click. Jeffrey Lucas added a new photo.
It's a really easy way to read anything on the page. Another tool that some of you may or may not be aware of is our SpeakIt tool, which can be activated by pressing Alt-Shift-I. Once you've activated the SpeakIt tool, you can simply left-click on a word,
www,
or left-click and drag to make a highlight, and it'll read whatever text you've highlighted.
Here's the east side of Des Moines on a night in July.
Okay. So again, you have a number of different tools that you can use there as well. One thing that I forgot to mention at the beginning in regards to our SpeakIt tool is, and I'm going to go back to our home page to show you this. A lot of web pages, you've got pictures. Now, AppReader will read these images if there's what's called alt text, alternative text associated with the picture. But you can also use the SpeakIt tool to read any of these pictures as well, assuming that the web page designer has defined them correctly. A lot of times you'll find that they aren't defined with any alt text. So if I start the SpeakIt tool, Alt-Shift-I, and I click on our ZoomText University image, for example.
Picture of the word ZoomText University with a Z wearing a graduation cap.
Okay, so that's a good example of a properly tagged image. It's describing to you what is there as if you can't see it. Word ZoomText University, wearing a university cap. All right, so you can read images with ZoomText. AppReader will read them, like I said, or the SpeakIt tool just by clicking on the actual image.
ZoomText Mac box shot.
Okay, that one says ZoomText Mac box shot.
Picture of the small camera for ImageReader.
Okay, so again, these are all properly labeled and have proper descriptions for them. So just something to keep in mind, if you have images and and you want to see if they have any label associated with them, you can use the SpeakIt tool. You might find if it doesn't do anything, like if I clicked on this image and nothing happened, that means that there's no alternative text associated with this image. In order for web pages to be fully compliant for accessibility standards, they will need to have all of their images tagged appropriately. But unfortunately, you're not going to find that with 100% of the web pages out there, so just be aware of that as well. Another thing I'm going to show you here today is Gmail.
Speech enabled.
And I'm going to go ahead and turn on speech. So one of the nice things, and I'm hoping it's going to work here because I didn't have, shame on me, the latest version of ZoomText installed on our webinar machine here. But one of the cool things, and if it doesn't work, I'm going to show you a video that we did where it does. Don't worry. One of the cool things in Gmail is that you have the ability to chat with other people that are online. It's helpful for us here at work if you don't want to send an email, you just need to ask something quick, not interrupt the person. So Becca is logged into Gmail, and if she sends me a message, Becca, go ahead and type.
Hey, Derek.
So she said, hey, Derek, and listen, ZoomText read it back to me. And so I'll go ahead and respond.
Hi, I'm Rebecca.
And ZoomText read it back to me that I typed it, so she's going to respond.
How's it going?
And she said, how's it going? ZoomText reads it back to me. So this is really cool. It's actually reading the conversation back and forth. So I'll just go ahead and respond and say, it's going great.
Great.
The webinar,
It's
awesome.
Awesome.
All right.
Hey.
And if I hit enter,
it's going great. The webinar is awesome.
So again, the cool thing about this is that ZoomText is automatically reading the conversation back to you without me doing anything special. Another thing too, I think if I don't have focus on the chat window, like if I had an email open, for example, Becca, go ahead and send one more chat.
Good thing I'm logged into it.
Unfortunately, it didn't do it, but I thought if there's focus in here, if this becomes available, it should track your focus down there as well. But the nice thing is it's reading any of the incoming messages that you get, so you're alerted two ways. Visually, this would be blinking, and then over here, you're gonna hear it spoken back by ZoomText. Okay. So that's a really cool new feature. If you use Gmail, I think a lot of people will appreciate. Some other things, again, I mentioned that we improved our reading tools. So if you got emails in Gmail, Alt-Shift, left-click.
Dear customer, we present to you over 1 million books at our online library.
Okay, just very easy to read through the content there as well using the reading tool. So we fixed a lot in Gmail. In previous versions of ZoomText, we used to have problems in this view and have people go back to what's called the basic HTML view, which loses a lot of functionality and things like that. So good news is latest versions of ZoomText, you're really going to have a good experience in Gmail. Now, one other thing I wanted to show you, I'm not going to go through and demonstrate it, I just want to show you that it's available. If you go to the settings icon in Gmail, it's in the upper right-hand corner. If you click on settings, this little gear icon, and then click on where it says settings underneath, there's an option here in the settings. If you scroll down, it says keyboard shortcuts. They're turned off by default. I'm not going to turn them on, but if you click on this Learn More button, there are some handy hotkeys for Gmail, and they're listed here on this help page. If I scroll down. So for example, you can hit Control-Enter to send a message. They've got some hotkeys to start composing messages. I think it's if you hit the C key, it will compose. Let's see, yeah, here you go. C will open a compose message so you can start reading a new one. The D key opens compose in a new window. You can hit backslash to go to your search field. So they've got some nice hotkeys to make using Gmail a little bit easier. I haven't played around with too many of these because, a lot of times you're going to want to be typing, and I feel like these will intrude on if you're trying to type a message. But they've got some handy hotkeys that you can turn on to make navigation and composing messages a little bit easier in Gmail. So again, that's under the settings, the gear icon, and then settings. And then in there, you just want to click on keyboard shortcuts on. I'd recommend reading through the Learn More first so you understand what the hotkeys are. And then just make sure you go all the way to the bottom and click Save Changes. All right, I'm not going to save these changes, but you'd want to do that so those hotkeys are enabled. I guess I can save it and just show you. So I've saved my changes. If I hit C, it opens up the Compose Message field, and my text cursor is blinking in the To field so I could start typing. All right. So just a handy tip, in case you use Gmail a lot, they do have some nice keyboard shortcuts that you might want to look at. All right, so the last web page we're going to cover is Twitter, and I'm going to go ahead and log in. I think Twitter is finally back up. Let's hope. It's been down for quite a few hours now, so let's hope that this works. There we go. Okay, so Twitter has kind of a similar timeline where you're going to see any tweets that people have posted. Now, the problem with Twitter is that there's no easy way to get into these tweets. You can use AppReader to start here, but there's a couple problems with it. One, and I'll just go ahead and start AppReader and you can see.
AppleVis at AppleVis 22's iOS App Directory Entry Education Duolingo Minor.
Okay, let me do this again. That highlight was kind of messing things up. Oops.
American Express at American Express 9 Rebecca's love for shopping locally and cooking seasonally is now a book.
Not me.
Join us at...
So it can be difficult because you've got these pop-ups that come up anytime you hover over the person, and it's kind of difficult to use AppReader, and it's going to read, start to finish, top to bottom here. If I were to use Web Finder, the problem is, and I'll go to the list view to show you this, is when we get to, I think it's under sections actually. See where it shows tweets? There's a main area of the page where the tweets are, but we're not able to start reading easily from that. Actually, we might be able to start AppReader there. Suffice to say that it can be a little difficult. And this is one good example of using our reading zones feature. Now, what reading zones allow you to do is define a static area of the screen you want to have read. What that means is you can define, basically a space within the application where you want text to be read. Okay? If the page ever changes, that's going to impact your reading zone. The nice thing is that the layout of Twitter is always the same. All the new tweets are always going to be over here. So what I can do, if I bring up ZoomText, I'm going to go to the Reader tab and click on the Zones button, and then click New. And now, once I'm in the Reading Zones mode, this is asking me where I want to define my reading zone, okay, and what area of the application. I'm actually going to select to the right of these graphics because it'll read the title of that graphic and then the person's name kind of twice. So what I'm going to do is define a reading zone for this area of Internet Explorer, okay? And I can just name that, just Twitter timeline or something. I don't know what the appropriate name is for it, okay? And I can just click OK from there. Now, if I want to read what's in that reading zone, I can click the Zones button, go where it says Trigger, and then there's my reading zone I created.
7M lately, everything I seem to do is a dead end. Expand collapse, expand AppleVis. At AppleVis 7M iOS App Directory Entry Education Duolingo Minor. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause this. So you can see that the area that's highlighted, all right, which is the reading zone we've created, ZoomText is going to read any text that's in that reading zone. The nice thing is, guess what? If I scroll my page down and I activate that reading zone, there's hotkeys for this as well. You can define up to 10 zones for an application, and the hotkeys are Control, Alt, and then 1 through 0, so 10 reading zones. So I'll hold down Control and Alt, and then press 1. Remember, I scrolled the page, so there's new content there, but whatever shows up in my reading zone is going to be read back to me. Friendly HTTP, bit.http.
You might have some stuff that's cut off. So, for example, I didn't make my zone the entire size of the page. I can go back and fix that, though, And I'll go ahead and show you that while we're in that situation. So if I bring up ZoomText, go to the Zones button and click Edit, here I can actually resize my reading zone. So I'll go ahead and drag this up basically to the edge of this little navigation bar at the top of Twitter. So now I've got it taking up that whole page. And now if I click play,
Zone 1 is empty.
whoops, it's not empty. Now I can just hit, I think it's escape to get me out of that. Now if we do Control-Alt-1,
Zone 1 is empty.
it shouldn't tell me it's empty because it's not. Let's try that again. It might not like the fact that I brought that up too far in that navigation bar area.
12 all-inclusive libraries, a step towards making libraries disabled friendly. http bit.ly/10QUSMA11Y education retweeted by TechXS expand 11.
Okay, so what I want to really explain here is, this Twitter timeline is updating constantly. So by having the reading zones be able to just read an area of the screen, since it's always changing, you can just activate that reading zone when you want it to read. Even if you've scrolled the page, again, it's going to read any of that content that's there. So this is a nice example of using a reading zone. Now keep in mind, if I went to a different web page, like I went to Facebook, and I activated my reading zone,
Trade show Emporium.
It's that same area of the screen that I defined earlier, but there might not be any relevant text in there for me to read. All right, so really this reading zone is only valid for Twitter because the layout is not changing. It's never changing. This is constant for right now until they change the page. So this would be a good example of where you can use reading zones. You could also use the SpeakIt tool and just select the Twitter update that you want to read.
Want to learn how to schedule messages in Hootsuite? Here's a quick video Hoot. http ow.ly/n.
Okay, so you could also do that as well. But if you want kind of an automatic way to just start reading through the information, I'd recommend setting up a reading zone for that. That's going to be your easiest way to accomplish that. Another thing to mention that I didn't show, but if you're in like the Facebook messages or you're composing a tweet in Twitter, ZoomText will read as you type and things like that. If you're in a Facebook message, you can use AppReader to read back those messages. I'm not going to read through any of our messages because sometimes users will ask us questions and send serial numbers. They just don't want to expose that to anyone. But just wanted to mention that that does work perfectly well with ZoomText.
Question along the lines. Somebody was asking about, you know how Facebook has, there's messages and there's also the chat. Do you know if ZoomText will read the chats kind of like it does in Gmail?
It will not automatically read those chat messages, no. One thing you could do is you could set up a reading zone for that if you wanted to. That might be one option. But yeah, the Gmail chat thing is something specific to Gmail that we added. We don't have similar functionality in Facebook, unfortunately. But you can use AppReader, you can use the SpeakIt tool to read any of those messages, whether they're in that little chat window or if you open them up in the big window view in the messages view. I guess they're the same thing. The chat and messages are the same thing now. But you'd want to use the SpeakIt tool or maybe even AppReader to read that. Okay, so that does it for our presentation. We're basically at the question and answer part of the webinar. Just some phone numbers listed there. We have our sales and tech support hotlines listed. For those of you that don't own ZoomText, if you're running a trial, we do offer free tech support. They're here Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Okay, so now is the time that we're at our Q&A. Some of you have already asked some questions that Becca has asked me to demonstrate. If there's anyone else that would like to ask any questions, feel free to raise your hand or type in your question into the chat or questions window.
So some people had questions or confusion about, well, what browser am I supposed to use? And it really does depend upon your version of ZoomText that you're running. I know it's kind of a confusing answer, but you know, if you're running into issues, it may just be as simple as you're not using a browser that's supported. And so, for instance, if you're running ZoomText 10.1, which we just released yesterday. That's only for Windows 8, and you can use Internet Explorer 10. Sometimes, you know, if you have it set to automatically update, you might be running ZoomText 10, and it's updated itself to Internet Explorer 10, which is not supported. So sometimes when you're running into issues, you just have to kind of give a glance at what version of ZoomText you're running and what browser you're using. You can revert back to older browsers. It just can be a little bit tricky sometimes.
Yeah, I'll try and summarize. If you're running ZoomText 10.0 in Windows 7, you want to be using IE9 or Firefox. The latest version of Firefox will work fine. I think generally your best reading experience is going to be in IE. Your fastest performance is going to be in Firefox. If you're using ZoomText 10.1 for Windows 8, I would go with IE10. I believe Firefox latest versions work fine there as well, but your best experience is probably going to be IE10. And again, that's ZoomText 10.1 for Windows 8 only. So those are going to be the web browser you're going to want to stick with for your best experience with ZoomText. I demoed today with IE9. I'm actually not even running the latest version of ZoomText 10, but you definitely want to have the 10.08 update and IE9 for the best performance and the best program echo and the ability to read items like the username field, your password field. We fixed a major bug in one of our updates a couple months ago for IE9 where we weren't reading button labels. ZoomText would just say blank or unnamed button. Now in IE9 it reads all the button labels correctly. So if you're tabbing through controls, like on a login screen, it'll all read those effectively or correctly now. So make sure you're running the latest and greatest versions of ZoomText. Regardless of your platform, make sure you're up to date. Someone asked about Office 365. I think that's similar to our Outlook.com work. So we're working on adding support for those sort of things. I think ZoomText will work with it. Again, there may be some quirky behavior, but we're working on improving our reading support in those areas.
You do have somebody with their hand up.
Yep, I just saw that. Connie, did you have a question for us? I know you had your hand raised for quite a while. All right, I'll leave you unmuted. If you do have your question, just feel free to speak up. And if anyone else has a question, again, there's that raise hand button. If you click that, I'll know to unmute you, and then you can ask your question to the group so everyone can hear. Meanwhile, anyone else, you can also feel free to type in your question, and we will read those out to the group. Another thing to mention that I didn't demonstrate here, Background Reader is also another tool you could use for reading content, and I'll just show that to you real briefly. Let's say we had an article. Well, it doesn't look like this is loading. I'll try and load up an article here and see if we can do this. So the nice thing about Background Reader, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, is any text that you can copy into the clipboard, you can have read back to you. This really isn't a good article because there's tons of pictures in it, so let me see if I can find something different. I'll just go to our blog. How about that? Whoops. Oh, looks like it didn't. Okay, so if you've got something that you want to read, again, you're free to use, AppReader and things like that. I just want to try and find something. There we go. Read Maury's article here about her one-year checkup in her stem cell trial. So with Background Reader, you can simply left-click and select text, and then I can copy it to the clipboard and start the Background Reader feature and have it start reading to me.
I have Stargardt disease, a juvenile macular dystrophy that's similar to...
Okay, with hotkeys it's a little bit easier. So if I have text selected, I can just hit caps lock S.
I have Stargardt disease, a juvenile macular...
And Background Reader will start reading the text to me. So that's another alternative you have as well. Again, Alt-Shift left-click is going to be nice. But if you want to listen to text and then continue to browse different pages, or maybe you're checking your Facebook while you're listening to an article, Background Reader is the best way to do that. Select the text, caps lock S.
From what I understand, start your disease is due to...
And then while it's reading, I'm free to go about and do other things as well. Okay, so that's just another quick tip for reading content on the web. Let's see. Couple questions that came in about Google Chrome. Currently, we do not support Google Chrome, and what I mean by that we don't support it, one is you will not have our patented font smoothing technology, so the text will look very jagged. The reading tools, AppReader, DocReader, and SpeakIt also do not work in Chrome. However, you can use Background Reader in Chrome because you're just copying text. So if using the reading tools is not a concern, you also won't have things like typing echo or program echo as you tab through. If that's not a concern and the text, the jagged text isn't an issue, they can still use it. It's not like the programs will crash together, but there's no special support in terms of our magnification quality and reading tools. It's something we've looked into. I don't know if and when Google Chrome support will be done, but it is something we've looked into in the past. I'm hopeful that we'll get to it at some point, but right now our primary focus is on the Windows 8 product and also adding support into ZoomText 10.1 for Windows 7. So that's where a lot of our efforts are currently. All right, I know we've gone way over in today's webinar, so I just want to see if anyone has any other questions for us before we end. I know a lot of people have already left the webinar as well. Someone asked about web support on the Mac. There's not really much to discuss there because we're still working on our reading support for that platform. So really it's premature to get into that discussion. Someone asked best method of reading a newspaper on your iPad. Maury, do you have any suggestions for that?
Get the NFB Newsline app.
Okay.
And other suggestion, if you don't have it, you can join it for free if you're print disabled, NFB Newsline. Check out the nfb.org, I believe, to find out about that, NFB Newsline app. Or you can just use VoiceOver.
Yep.
Put your finger on the text and it'll start reading. And you can use the two-finger swipe down to do continuous reading of a web page.
Yep, so you can just use VoiceOver on the iPad even if you're on the newspaper's website and do that with the gesture features. One thing I want to mention before everyone starts to clear out of the webinar, if you do have follow-up questions that either you forgot to ask or think of later, you can always email us, the webinar staff. Our email address is learning@aisquared.com. We will archive today's webinar and post it on our website. So if you go to the Learning tab on our website and click on Free Webinars, there's a link for recorded webinars, and we'll post this one up there as well. Someone asked about a webinar for Zoom for cell phones. We've done a webinar in the past on our ZoomReader app, but as far as the accessibility features that are built in to the various cell phones, we probably will not cover that. They're all different. Whatever platform you're running, whether you've got an iPhone or an Android phone, they all have different things, and it's kind of outside of the AI Squared product family. So we will likely not cover anything like that in future webinars, but there is a webinar that we covered using our ZoomReader product that's on our website. Douglas asked, how can you keep AppReader from reading across columns on a website? Well, it should read in the correct column order. So it's either one of two things. Either the website has not been designed correctly, there is no appropriate column order, or there's an issue with ZoomText where our modules that handle our reading support are not configured correctly. Your best bet would be to contact our tech support department and have them assist you with that. And it might be specific to the web page, but if you're seeing it everywhere, I'm guessing it's an issue with ZoomText. So definitely give them a call or send them an email. And while we're waiting to see if there's any other last-minute questions, just want to thank you guys for attending. We had a lot of registrations and a lot of people join us live here today. Hopefully you all were able to sit in for the whole thing and got a lot out of this. We really just wanted to share some, some tips and tricks to help you use various websites with ZoomText because there's no, it's kind of like a Swiss Army knife. You've got so many features and tools in ZoomText. It's almost overwhelming to know which ones to use when. So hopefully this was a good session for everyone, and you found some useful information in it. All right. Any last-minute questions for us before we end the webinar for today? All right. It doesn't look like there's any other questions. Again, if you have any follow-ups, you can always email learning@aisquared.com. We can pick up your question there as well. So again, thank you guys. Appreciate you attending and taking a little bit of extra time now that our webinar went over. We will have this available on our website very shortly, and we hope you have a great rest of the day.